Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So when you look in Exodus chapter 22, verse 3, it discusses the laws of a thief who was caught. And to paraphrase the verse, if the stolen item is found in his hand, meaning he was caught, whether it's an ox, whether it's a donkey, meaning any object, shnayim yishalem. He has to pay two. He has to pay double. Let's understand this. You see, according to Torah law, when one steals, in other words, one makes another lose from their possession, there is no punitive measures typically. Rather, there is what's called restitution. You made the person lose, now you have to make him whole. Putting you away in jail, for example, or perhaps even fining you, typically, is not a solution for what you've done. And what you've done needs to be resolved according to the Torah. In other words, nothing is left open-ended. So you stole, you made the person lose an X amount of money. In order to resolve that, you have to pay it. However, here, the Torah says, in addition to paying the equivalent of what you've stolen, the value of what you've stolen, to make that person whole, you're going to have to pay kefel, which is the Hebrew word for double. That is already punitive. That is a fine. A fine, by definition, in essence, is punitive. Interestingly, this second amount is so much so that it's a fine that the Talmud actually discusses, what if the thief comes and admits guilt? That means accepts responsibility, owns up to what he's done. Then he only has to pay the value of what he stole. There's no longer a need for the fine. So this actually begs the question, what is this fine all about? When according to the Torah, the fundamental principle is that you need to make the person whole. You need to resolve the problem which you created. What is the problem here? What is the matter, the issue that's being resolved with this person paying a fine of double the value of what he's stolen? Well, the answer is, as the Talmud explains, you see, when somebody steals in this manner, as described here, which is in a very secretive, in a very discreet, in a very hidden manner, one actually is committing a double crime in a sense. First of all, they're stealing. But second of all, as I'll explain, they're actually committing a much greater, a much deeper crime, a double crime, so to speak, against God. You see, when someone comes in the open brazenly and steals, what they're doing is terribly wrong. But at least they're not putting the fear of man ahead of the fear of God. It's obvious that when one steals, when one commits any whatsoever type of injustice or crime, one is obviously lacking the fear of God. One is obviously not paying attention to the fact that God is there and present all the time and sees everything we're doing. But at the same time, when this person shows a disregard or a lack of fear of Hashem, of God, he's also showing a disregard and a lack of fear of man. He just brazenly goes out in the open and just steals. But when somebody is hiding, when somebody tunnels their way in, they're breaking in discreetly, what they're really saying is, of God, I'm not afraid. I don't fear God. I'm not concerned about him seeing what I'm doing. But it's just man that I fear. I don't want to get caught by man. Now that, says God, needs to be punished. The person needs to be penalized in order for him to wake up and realize that they are in a very bad place. that they fear man more than they fear God. And that's why if the person comes and confesses and admits to it, doesn't have to be dragged into court by the testimony of witnesses that saw him commit the crime or found out about it, then obviously there's no more such a great need for him to be penalized to that degree. Rather, it's clear that he's already working on himself. The interesting question would be, what happens in a case of an armed robber? And actually, there's a debate in the Talmud which category the armed robber falls into. Does he fall into the category of the one who steals brazenly? Thus, he doesn't have to pay double when he's caught and finally brought to justice? Or there's an opinion that says, no, in a certain sense, the armed robber is like this thief who is stealing in a clandestine manner. In this case, however, he's hiding behind his weapon. He does fear man, and that's why he brings a weapon to the equation. That's an interesting thought, but the idea of it is, don't be more fearful of man than you are of God.